Rebecca Lane, welcome to the podcast. We are, as we were just talking about, in the first one in the new studio. So
Thank
thanks
you.
for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and
Yeah.
honored. Thank you.
So your business, Arlene Studios, you started that a long time ago.
Mm.
Tell me, where does where does your passion for art come from? Let's go back to the beginning.
Oh, that's really the beginning.
Yeah.
I was raised in a creative family. My dad was an entrepreneur. He's an architect, and my grandmother, his mother, was a costume designer on Broadway. And so I think having that, growing up in that environment from an entrepreneur that was creative
hmm
himself, and then watching her work with fabrics and in that creative environment, I loved it from the very beginning. I just remember it. And there was never anything else. I've always been creative.
So growing up, like you knew, like this is what you're gonna do, something with
Absolutely.
art
There
or
was no
colors.
question.
Yeah,
I had to do that.
yeah. I'm fascinated by that because for me, I went through many different changes and trying to figure out like what I wanted to do. And like people like yourself, where they're just like 5 years old, whatever the age is, like you just know,
Yeah,
like this is what I
absolutely.
want to do.
Yeah, no, I was the crazy one. I was coloring on my walls,
Yeah,
cutting up bed sheets, making costumes. Like that was me.
nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So fast forward a little bit, like you're now in school and like going to college and stuff. Like how did you determine like what degree that you were gonna go for and that sort of stuff?
So that changed multiple times
Okay.
because I had such diversity in my creativity. I liked all of it. I appreciated all of it. I studied classical piano all growing up. I had a scholarship to study music. I ended up flying the coop and going to New York and studied there, but and studied art and costume design. I actually majored first in fashion, switched to pattern making and costuming. Costuming turns out it's actually more of a history lesson, like sleeves
Oh
in the
yeah.
1600s. This
Yeah.
is so fun. Let's pair it with skirts from the 1950s. And it was just like this huge history lesson. And to me, I didn't want to sit there and write about socks and collars and hats. And this is the type of hat, like that was just not me. I liked the pattern making. That's kind
Mm.
of how my brain works. And this 3D image kind of, I think it was just watching my dad create blueprints and patterns
Mm.
like for homes that I just grew up seeing things in 3D. So that's how I see everything when I paint and everything. So, um, but I changed my major about 6 times creatively. So it was like I could have so many
Yeah.
different degrees, but I
Yeah.
don't. I just studied all of them. And then when I discovered that you could major in color science and psychology, I went AWOL and I just dived into that full on. At the time, I couldn't study it in the US, so I studied out of Sweden.
Okay.
And then they opened a branch in San Diego, so I started flying to San Diego and kind of studied remote. Half the time I was there, half the time I was in Florida, half the time I was in New York, and then I was in Sweden, so it was kind of everywhere.
Yeah, cool.
I ended up getting certified and I've been recertified since COVID. So I've
Okay.
been doing that for almost 20 years.
So what is like color science and all of that? Like what do you study?
So the actual science is basically just the rainbow, is how you think of that, like light prisms,
Yeah.
right? And all of that. So that's the science. The psychology is more of what I've focused in on, because that affects the art and design of a home, our clothes, and individually what we see. That's more of like art therapy, where, and the artist of where I'm at. Um, so apologies, I think that's me.
Oh, it's
The
okay.
the so okay, so let me refocus back where I'm saying. Okay, so the color psychology is very broad in that it's sociology for us as a group, right? So
Okay.
what a developer or somebody or a marketer branding is talking to a group of people right? Everybody that needs toothpaste, we're going to talk to them about our product with this particular color versus your personal psychology, what you would want in your home or in your wardrobe. So if you're doing your personal colors, um, the same color could mean different things. And that
Okay.
was intriguing to me. So
Interesting.
I studied the science, but to really get into the psychology was very interesting to me. So I focused more on that. And I use that psychology education within my art and everything I do for my studio.
Yeah. So so you have your degree now, and then what do you do for your career, like with that degree?
So it's very broad. Anything that has to do with color, the main thing I do is my art and creating art. I work with a lot of commercial businesses and designers and realtors
Mm-hmm.
um, and creating the space and environment that they want to convey. Right. So I use my color psychology for that. Like,
Yeah.
we want this home to sell. We want this home to be inviting. We want this home to look more expensive than it actually is.
Yeah.
Um, so there's just different ways of kind of, I don't know if the word manipulate is right, but to convey the message that you're really trying to communicate.
Yeah.
And there's ways of doing that with color
And that is like
across.
people are like subconsciously aware, like they see the colors and it's like subconscious, right? It's not.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's been proven that we're actually born with innately. So like just from back with our from caveman, with the color of fruit that changes,
Mm,
and it's like, okay, this banana is good because of this, and this mango because of, so it's something that we're just born with is color. And everybody sees color gender wise differently. And then also the shape of your eye. So having your genetics and your cultural difference, it actually impacts how you see
so like
color.
color, so like like this color on the wall behind you
Sure.
looks different to me than it does to you.
Yeah, specifically, red tones are more different.
Okay.
Warm tones are more different gender wise, but my shape of my eye is different than yours specifically. I know because I'm wearing glasses straight up. I don't know if you're wearing contacts, but
No. Yeah.
mine, my eye shape is different. So that's going to change the prism, the light that hits my eye, and right, and what that's deflecting. So the scientific of that, and I've studied the biology of your eye
Hmm.
muscles, and how the light hits color. um
Interesting.
yeah, and how we're both going to see this as a different shade of like what I could call navel blue, or
Yeah.
something like that, where somebody else might see it more as a cobalt or really dark. They might think it has all these different, like maybe it's more green, like turquoise. There's a lot of like fuchsias and magentas, and then turquoise. People get confused about how much blue or green it has,
Yeah.
and how
So
much purple, red, blue, those kind of in between colors.
yeah.
People get confused.
So my wife and I, like, this has been like a thing for a few months now, but like blues and greens, like we see
Yeah.
those completely different. Like
Different.
we just
Yeah, a
got
lot of people do.
like
Yeah.
a blue green couch, and she's like, it's a blue couch, and I'm like, no, no, no,
It's a
it's a green
green.
couch. Like,
Yeah.
how do you not see
That's
that?
good. That's such good proof of, there was that dress that came out a while back. Like,
Oh
what do you
yeah,
see? Right.
the white
So,
blue. Yeah,
right, right. So everybody sees something a little bit different. Specifically, women's, like you have different cones in your eye. And the female cone sees about 1 million more colors
wow,
than the male cone.
wow,
So women, I could say they see it more accurately, but that's not necessarily true. They just see more.
more. Yeah,
So the reds that we enjoy are different than the reds that you're going to enjoy.
I wonder why that is. I wonder like why, like biology, why they have.
I think it has something to do with the nurture, kind of the genetic and
Yeah,
understanding the color tone. And this is kind of what we've studied. This is kind of where we're at with it.
yeah,
is that like when we have an infant, like their skin tone and when they're first birthed, right? The color of their poop and
Mm,
what they're eating and all of this, those are really important. Also, I think a lot of just genetically, women did a lot of the cooking and the nurture, right? They did a
okay.
lot of that. So
Yeah, yeah.
picking the fruits, knowing that this berry tone is this and
The right colors.
what's
Yeah.
poisonous and what's not. And a lot in nature, red tones are more of a danger sign
Yeah.
than the water being blue. So I think it's more important for the man to see the cool tones and the woman to see the
Yeah.
warm tones because
Yeah.
that's more of the danger sign. So she's throwing the red flags on the field
Yeah.
versus
Yeah, that's
the other.
interesting.
Yeah. If you genetically sit down and across the board, culturally even, and you ask what color represents boy versus girl, it's the pink and blue.
Mm-hmm.
So red tones seem to be that more high kind of like emotional color. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying that women are emotional, but just across the board,
Right, right.
like culturally, geographically, that tends to be and has been more of the that gender stereotyped of
Yeah.
that women are more warm tones and men or they're just more laid back and chill.
Yeah.
Um, but we both obviously have both.
Yeah.
So
It's
yeah,
interesting. That's very
yeah.
interesting. So your art, like when did you have you always been painting, and is that, I guess, like what do you focus on now, and like have you always done this type of art since you were a young age, or has that transitioned over the years too?
I've always liked color.
Okay, so it's always been
It's
color
always been
involved.
color. That
Yeah.
was yes. Yeah, I would always have the brown and the gray crayon left over, so to speak. It's
Yeah.
like that was never used. Um, so yeah, it was always color. I think my style has developed because I've studied so many different mediums. I've done oil, watercolor, pastel, acrylic. I tend to do mixed media is my style because I just marry them all together. It's also how I see the actual art, like I mentioned before, with the 3D. So I can layer, and it's been fun
Mm,
over the years to understand how different mediums react to one another, where you can create a resist, right? So if I use oil and then I put acrylic on top of it, the acrylic will fall off.
mm-hmm.
So it won't stay. But if I use an acrylic and then I put oil on top, the oil will stick to the acrylic.
Okay.
So if I layer that, knowing that, if I want a pattern to come through, I just put the oil and then I paint acrylic, and the acrylic will only stay to the acrylic.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say I'm going to paint a figure or I'm going to paint an animal and I only want half the face to come through. I paint half the face in oil, I paint half the face in acrylic. Then I paint another layer on top of it. Half will be covered and half won't.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
having the knowledge of what mediums work with what. And then there's brands within the medium, like some are more highly pigmented than
Okay.
others. So
Yeah.
just kind of knowing, and that just takes time to fiddle
It's
with
like
what I
trial and
have.
error. Yeah.
Yeah. So has it always been the same to answer the question? I think it's really developed. I think anybody's craft is kind of like that, you know.
Yeah.
It's always been about color for me. And I like the science. And then the more my education has come with understanding the importance of color and color combination and making colors neighbors, you know, putting yellows and purples
Mm-hmm.
together. It's very interesting. If you look at sunsets,
Mm.
the yellow and the purple's always together,
Yeah.
which is kind of interesting. Purple is usually the shadow, so it's behind. So when I
Yeah.
paint, it's usually that way.
Okay.
So it's just understanding the relationship of color and then putting different colors together changes each color. So if
Yeah.
I paint gray on top of this wall versus on the lamp, right? So the lamp is
Yes.
white. I put gray on that, it's going to show up. It's going to be a higher
Different.
contrast. I
Yeah.
put
Yeah.
gray on a navy, it's going to be different. So understanding the relationship of each color is important. So it's changed over the years, but I would say that it's just matured and developed
Mm-hmm.
versus actual change of style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fascinating.
Always been abstract.
Yeah.
I've always enjoyed that. What do you see in it? And I don't always want to tell everybody that this is what
What,
this is and this is
yeah.
what it meant to me at the time. I like people that I like it when people can really be like, this is what this meant. This is what it
To
means to
me,
me.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you, so you're gonna start to paint something. Do you have the vision in your head like before you paint the first stroke of like what it's gonna look like and how you're gonna accomplish all of that?
This is an excellent question. So typically, yes. Typically,
Okay.
yes. So I see things and I'm like, oh, this would be great. This would be great as a painting. And sometimes I'll have people tell me, you should paint that. That's really fun,
Mm.
right? I've had people send me pictures and be like, this sunset or this flower, this is the color specifically. Usually, when people see intense colors, they'll send me a picture.
Yeah.
Like, I saw these shoes, I saw this, whatever. Check this out.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I will be like, okay, yeah, I have to use this color combination of a flower. Is it going to be a flower? Maybe not, but the color combo was great. So to answer the question, yeah, I do usually have. However, like any story, you kind of have to let it develop on its own.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes its voice is bigger than my own, and I
Mm.
have to let it develop, kind of like a child.
Yeah.
You want to have a kid, you have a kid, but you don't know what you're going to get. Right.
Right.
And it's kind of like, okay, I want this painting to be an abstract yellow. Maybe I want this to be a sunset, especially if it's a commission and somebody's paid you a certain amount,
Yeah.
right? It's like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And so I have to kind of guide it into that, right? But still, you have to let the child grow up and have their own voice. And it's
Yes.
kind of like that with a painting. It really doesn't want to be that. And I've done this. I had a commission last year. I restarted it 5 times because it
Wow.
just wasn't doing what I wanted and what I thought the client wanted.
So what'd you do? You just trashed the piece
Well, I
or
didn't
you
trash it. I set it aside and started
okay.
over. And then
Okay.
I had 5 other pieces that I went back to, and I was just like, I'm just going to create
Make
something else
something.
with
Yeah.
this. But it just wasn't really speaking what I thought that the client truly wanted.
Yeah.
Sometimes people will come to me with like emotional pieces. Like they're like, okay, I'm going through this particular phase of my life. I'm really excited. I just bought a new home, or I'm having a child. It's like these monumental kind of moments. And they're like, we want to convey X, Y, Z. So when I'm having to paint an emotion versus painting, hey, I bought this 63 Corvette. I want to paint the Corvette, whatever.
Mhm.
It's like,
Mhm.
okay, that's fun. It's a logical painting. This is
Mhm.
what I'm painting.
Mhm.
But if I'm painting an emotion, that will sometimes take a little bit more. Like, how do I convey this so that when I give you the piece and you see it, this is what you're feeling?
Yeah.
So taking that is a little bit more interesting. So those are the pieces where I'm like, I have an idea of my experience and my education, how to convey that, but it's also the personal psychology of that person. Like typically maybe I would use reds to paint this, but for them it's going to have to be more orange or,
Mm.
so just understanding what their personal psychology is. So
Is there a like when you're trying to understand that person, is there like there's like a conversation or a relationship that you have to have with them
yeah,
to like understand
absolutely.
like where they
There's
come
kind
from?
of an interview. It's a
Yeah,
casual
yeah,
thing, but
yeah,
yeah, I usually have two. This is great. This is so true. I usually sit down and I have coffee,
yeah.
and then I sit down the second one and we have alcohol.
Nice.
Between the two, I can pull everything I
Let's start it
need.
off a little gentle with the
Yeah,
coffee.
we'll
Yeah.
start off with coffee. Then I'll like make some notes. Okay, got it, got it. I
Yeah.
think I think I know who you are or who you want to be.
Yeah.
And then the alcohol, I'm like, oh, this is who you really are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Nice.
And then I can create from that because a lot of it is psychology. Um, so it's about wrapping everything up. And for me to really pull something out that you can feel,
Mm.
it has to be a little bit deeper than like, this is what I want,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Somebody came to me one time, this is years ago, and he said he wanted a powerful piece for his office. He was an athletic trainer, worked with a lot of people like, that were building and improving their lives, and he
Yeah.
wanted a powerful piece. And so it's like, okay, what does power mean to you? What is power to you?
Yeah.
And if you have a powerful piece sitting in your, office, then you can convey that to others, because what power means to everybody that comes in your office is going to be different. So let's create one just for you.
Yeah.
And so we really had to dive into this conversation of what is power.
Mm.
And so that was a cocktail conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's stuff like that where we really sit down and talk. Sometimes it's over Zoom, and I'm like, okay, cheers, bottle of wine,
Yeah.
let's do this. I've worked with people all over the place. I've shipped pieces to Spain and
Cool.
overseas and Italy. And then I work with a designer in the Hamptons. So when we do have those conversations about what does your client want, what do you see in their home, it's okay, we're going to talk tonight and have a bottle of wine.
Yeah.
So it's conversations where it's just being relaxed and being comfortable and letting me know who you really are.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
allows you to create a better piece for them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk about like creating a business from what you do.
Okay.
How do you go about doing that without, to me, I guess like if you're not creating a commission piece, but if you're just painting what you want to paint, um is there a concern about like, are people going to like this, or where do I
Yeah,
sell
for
this,
sure.
all that kind of stuff?
For sure. Okay, so this is really great. So great questions. I'm actually creating a series of reels right now that I'm putting on my social media. So they're kind of all scheduled out, but
Cool.
the next 2-3 weeks they're going to be popping up, and it's talking about specifically, excuse me, how I create a collection, which is answers a
Mm,
lot of what you're talking about here. Because I work in so many different facets, different artists work in different ways. This is the way that it works for me. Is I create collections, and I've kind of
mm,
always done this, but I've just more recently, since COVID, started doing big shows. So my upcoming show is in October at Hotel Haya. It's going to be a week-long exhibition, and I'm creating a collection with my own voice and
mm.
education.
Okay.
And I release it, and I'm talking about it in depth with reels. So I have this process where I create the logical side first, where I have an idea of what I want to convey, but then I put it in a spreadsheet, and I create this really detailed spreadsheet about every piece, the size of canvas, the size of wall I'm going to put it on at the location, price points for pieces, the descriptions, the colors, what the message is going to be conveyed within the collection.
Yeah.
And then I start sketching pieces out, you know. This is where I usually go out into community. I don't do a lot of this in studio because I have to vibe. It's a very much of a vibe. So I'll sit in like a wine bar and
Oh,
like
and do your sketches
and
then.
do sketches
Okay.
out in public. I have a glass of wine. I kind of like, and I just kind of pull out what I'm feeling, knowing that this is the
Yeah,
collection I'm
yeah.
creating. This is what I want to convey.
Cool.
And then after the whole thing is all over, after the show and the collection is created and I've shown it to everybody, I make notes and sometimes journal. I'm avid journaler. I every day.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I do like voice memos, like, "Hey, this person just commented about this piece." So I compile all of the notes together. Like, this is the piece that I created. This is the collection I created, and this is the feedback. So last year I created in 23, I created this color psychology kind of show about different pieces, what they mean, and the colors and mental health awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And I listened to the feedback. It was geared more towards commercial and business owners. So it was larger pieces. And a lot of people that came to the show were like, we really wanted to buy something, but you didn't have
Too
smaller
big. Yeah.
pieces. Like I can't put a 10 piece in my home,
Yeah.
right? So it's like I really listened to the feedback, and I'm like, okay, I'm really about community. That's very important to me. And so I was just like, okay, I'm going to create smaller pieces, even if I make a couple prints, very, very limited, usually like 10 pieces, a higher quality print
Mm-hmm.
in smaller sizes. So this collection, that's something that I really listened to people. I was like, okay, I'm going to create some into prints, and I'm going to create some smaller originals. So that's just like mixing the creative and the logical. Okay, now how am I going to take my style and create it
Yeah.
in a smaller, right? So that somebody can come in and buy a piece for
More people can buy
$100,
it. Yeah.
right? And put it, on the side of their wall instead of maybe over their entire couch.
Yeah.
Because if that place is already full, I have like I have rotation every season. I'm changing out my art. I have
Artwork.
some in
Okay.
storage. I'm just constantly like I have different artists that I absolutely love. I'll buy their pieces and I have it throughout my home. So every season my home completely changes because I'm
Oh,
changing
yeah.
out my art. And then
Okay.
as my collection, and sometimes I hang my own art in my house and
Yeah.
it sells. And so I'm like next piece in.
Yeah.
So I kind of keep a more of a plain palette in my home because the art's always changing.
Yeah.
That's fun to me. But it helps with the creative ideas to keep a fresh space so I can create that collection.
Yeah.
So creating to answer the question maybe even more accurately, my business is revolves hugely around that collection.
Yeah. When you
So
started when you started selling your art, like what did you was it commission based or commission art where you're like, you're meeting with somebody and they want you to create this piece, or is it just like this is what I feel like creating. Let's see if
it was a
people.
little bit of both. It was a little bit of both. So I've always had, I mean, even when I was a teenager, people were like, "Hey, can you do this?" Right?
Okay.
And so, I mean, I as a teenager, I went over and I painted a mural in somebody's home, and it was actually a bonus room, right? And it
Hmm.
was a huge gator, like the Florida Gators.
Okay. Cool.
It was huge. It was like I don't know 9 feet or something
Wow.
across the wall, just the gator sign itself. So
Oh wow.
getting the and then having like the football lines and all this different stuff. So I painted the entire. I was about 15. I remember my mom actually had to drive me to the
Wow.
house, and so I painted this all out. And it was really different. I still have pictures. It's really fun. And then there was another lady that wanted birds, and so I painted birds for her. And so it was just kind of like all over the place.
Hmm.
But these were when I was quite young.
Yeah.
And so, I had different people in the family. Hey, look, can you do this? Or can you do anytime something creative would come up? It was like, oh, if you need something creative done, ask her.
Yeah.
Like that was me. That was me in the
Ask
family,
Rebecca. Yeah.
at school, whenever. It was like, oh, we need help with the bulletin board. Ask Rebecca. Okay. So it was just small, big projects, whatever it was. That's kind of people came to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that's how it generally starts out with someone, like if you're going to be an artist and then make it like a full-time career, it's just kind of like this is what you do
That's a
and
great question. I would say across the board, no matter what you do, always follow your curiosity, no
mm,
matter what you're doing.
yeah.
Because I think that's where your intention lies. That's where your purpose is in your curiosity,
Mhm.
and that's where you'll find who you really are
Mhm.
because nobody really has the same curiosity that you do. Um, so I think that's how you find out kind of who you really are and
Yeah.
what your interest is. Like, I wonder what happens if, and then just
Yeah.
fill in the blank. Like, that's where the fun is. And so, specifically for creatives, um, that's how I found out about so many different of my, like what I was talking about earlier with my oil and acrylic. What happens if I
Yeah,
put
right,
both
right.
of these together? Oh, this is really cool.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of kept developing that and following that curiosity. So, I mean, whether you're a realtor, you're an attorney, or try it, see what happens,
Mhm.
you know. And as an artist, when you continue to try things, um, it opens so many more doors.
Yeah.
And just try it and see what happens. And if it works for you, keep doing it.
Stick with
Develop
it.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Across the board.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I like this podcast I think would be like an example of that. Like I was nervous to start the podcast I started a few 3.5 years ago now.
Mm.
And was uncertain as to like what it could be, like if I would enjoy it, that sort of thing. But um I ended up just starting it. I'm like, okay, let me record 4 episodes
Mhm.
and then I'll have 4 of them to post, right? And so I'll have like a pipeline of episodes, and then I just kept going and kept going, and now it's evolved, and now I love it, right? So
Of
it's
course.
yeah, if you don't try things, try new
You
things,
don't
push
know.
yourself, you just don't know.
Right. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
So you mentioned journaling and you mentioned mental health and stuff.
Yeah.
What is like what do you do with your paintings for mental health and like why is that important to you?
That's a great question. So it's a big motivator. So I'm a single mom. I have 3 kids. My oldest son is nonverbal autistic.
Mm,
And so for me, keeping my mental health straight, he's so aware of everybody's mood
yeah.
because he reads energy because he doesn't speak.
Okay.
Now he types to communicate.
Okay.
But there's this whole level of um like I have to have a spa like house
Yeah.
because he gets really behavioral, right? And so
Mhm.
keeping my mental health straight so that when he goes overboard, I'm still like, and breathe.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So that's really important to me. Also, in my marriage, I was with my ex for 15 years and he was bipolar. And so I saw that firsthand,
Mm,
that mental health, that battle that he had.
mm,
And I've seen it so much in my own just personal life, the importance and how it can askew you so quickly
yeah.
if you don't have your own space to be healthy in your own body.
Mhm.
And so I've taken a lot of my own studies with color science and psychology and understanding your own comfort zone and what creates intention and space for your health. And I've I've seen it over and over doing some art therapy
Yeah.
and how important it is for you to speak your own story
Yeah.
versus speaking for anybody else. You have to do what works for you.
Mhm.
Kind of goes back to that curiosity thing, like
Right.
what makes you comfortable in your own skin
Right.
and not apologizing for it. And for me, that's bright, loud colors. That
Yeah.
makes me happy. Some people that would drive crazy,
Right.
right? So it's understanding your own what you need, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And that's what I try and convey a lot with my paintings is that it's okay wherever you are.
Mhm.
It's a journey, and that's okay.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. How do you balance like negative feedback and with because like you said, like some people don't like the bright colors or
Right.
anything like that. Like
Yeah.
how do you balance that and still be creative and just stick with like this is what I want to do?
There's some really this is a great questions. Okay.
Thank
So there are a couple artists that are really good with this where they
Yeah.
take yeah, I think his name's Caleb. He's on Instagram. He has all these huge followers. He's like
Okay.
huge following. And he takes all this negative feedback and he turns it positive.
Mm.
And I really feed off of that. And it's of course you don't want anybody to not like you want everybody to just love you. Look at
Right.
me, I'm
Right.
adorable.
Yeah.
So everybody wants that, right? That's what
Yeah.
we all genuinely want deep down. We all just want to be loved.
Yeah.
So, but really understanding that that's not going to happen and that's okay, and not being, just being unapologetically you
Yeah.
is so like we don't need everybody to be the same. We need everybody to
Right.
be who they really are,
Right.
and that's so important. So, I guess I don't know if I'm answering the question right. Ask it one more time.
Yeah, yeah, just how do you balance that? Like
The
taking
negative.
taking the negative the feed, because it's I feel like if you're out there, if you're in public, or if I mean with social media now, right? Like everybody's kind of out there to
Right.
to some degree, right? But if you're putting your life out there and you're putting like your thoughts and stuff out there with your art,
Yeah.
some people are gonna love it, and then some people are gonna be
True.
like, this is not me, and they say things that could be hurtful or whatever. So how do
Yeah.
you how do you
It's
balance
happened.
all that?
It has happened. I think just being confident in your own story and in your
Yeah,
own value
yeah, love that.
and being like, this is my purpose and this
Hmm.
is my curiosity. And not everybody has to understand it. It's
Mm,
okay.
yeah,
We don't speak the same language in color, and that's okay. You don't have to like neon pink and orange. To me, this is happy
This
times.
is amazing.
This is so fun. And if you want to beige out all
Yeah.
day. That is not my vibe. But I would say, yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with the
The
confidence.
confidence, yeah.
And that comes over time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think having this might be more psychology speaking than artists, but I think having a close circle around you
Mm,
is really important of the people that do encourage you and
sure.
believe in what you're doing.
Yeah.
Um, as a creative that has worked with so many clients and businesses and everything like that, I know a lot of people, but there's like 5 people that are close,
Yeah.
like literally.
Yeah.
And having those people just constantly pat me on the back. And it's not an ego thing. It's literally like, you got this.
An
So
encouragement.
when you
Yeah.
do get that, oh, a 5-year-old could paint that,
Yeah.
right? Because that's happened. I'm like, I get it. I fling paint on a canvas for a living. I get it. It's abstract. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But also, have you written a dissertation in this? So
Yeah.
no, I understand what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I think it's really just about having the right people around you and being confident in your own path and journey and what you're doing.
hmm Yeah, I think that's the confidence piece is important. I think, and then as a parent too, like you want your child to grow up confident. Like that's I've heard a lot of people talk about that, and like Gary Vee comes to mind when he talks about like his mom like instilled a ton of confidence in him and belief in him as a young kid, and to be able to do what he's doing now, right? It's kind of the right the confidence I feel like
Yeah.
is a
Yeah.
lot of everything that we do, right?
I've had some really, I've been very fortunate to have some amazing mentors,
hmm
some wonderful people.
Did you seek those people out, or did they just kind of fall
Um,
into your?
I wouldn't say they fell into my lap. I would say it was kind of a combination. Like I
hmm
would
hmm
pursue my curiosity into
Yeah,
something, and then somebody would see value in what I was doing and in my point of view.
yeah.
So I've been like, so for example, a couple years ago, I was emerging artist with Gasparilla Arts,
Okay.
the Festival of Arts, and now I'm co-chair for the festival. So I continued my curiosity with the festival and the fine arts and the community that Gasparilla is. And I love it. I love the community of people. I love what they're conveying and doing in the community. So I followed that curiosity and finding mentors within Gasparilla. It's not like they came to me. I continued to show up in that
Yeah.
space. And then they voted me in co-chair. And now I have this group of community friendship and mentorship within that community, and I'm cultivating that intentionally.
hmm
But then they're also returning that as mentorship, and I'm learning other artists that are showing in museums. And I'm like, okay, so tell me more about your journey and how you've shown and what you've done. And so it's cultivated a mentorship because I continued to pursue it. So I
hmm
don't think it was like somebody fell in my lap or
Yeah.
anything. I have a friend that I've known since I lived in New York. Goodness, right after college, or I moved to college to go to college there,
hmm
right? So
hmm
she had a design firm in Manhattan, and so she was doing hotels in Dubai. She was doing all of the things, like the biggest, like you think design firm, top of the line. It's her.
Yeah.
And so I was studying color at the time, and she was the head of the color council. Like there's International Color Council, there's all these color groups, right, which I'm members of, and we do color trends and all of that. And so she was the head of the board and the International Color Council. And she's like, "Oh, you're such a young one to like color the way that you do, and you
Oh
see it
wow.
so interesting. You have a different perspective." We still talk on a monthly basis. So
Cool.
we've been talking for 20 years. And so she would say, "Hey, look, try this, do this. Have you tried this?"
Mm,
So she would just throw out these little gold nuggets. So I would say that maybe she fell more in my lap, but then I continued to pursue my color and my
right.
education. So it
Right.
was kind of like a dual, um, where nobody fell in my lap, but I continued to follow that curiosity and intention. And
Yeah.
then somebody would see the value in my perseverance.
Yes.
So
Yeah. I
yeah,
love that. Yeah, I
yeah,
think I would agree with that, right? It's you taking action and following your passion and something,
yeah,
and then like
yeah,
this person just kind of
yeah.
shows up and you're like, okay, I want to learn more from them.
Right. I think there's this thing that says something about um, Lamborghini. There's not advertisements on TV for Lamborghini because their client isn't sitting down watching TV. And it's kind of like if you want that Lamborghini mentor, you're going to have to get off the sofa.
Yes. Yeah.
Nothing wrong with sitting on the sofa every now and then. But if you really do want that high value career,
Yeah.
mentor, job, whatever, um, then you're gonna have to do a little bit of the work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I
So
love that. So we'll link all of your website and your socials in the description and the show notes. But do you have any events coming up where people can come see your art, and then just mention your where people can learn more about you?
I think right now I'm in studio, so I've kind of disappeared from the world. I'm getting ready. I truly,
Yeah,
I turn off my phone, like you can't reach
that's
me.
awesome.
I vibe out. I'm jazzing big time. I'm big jazz
Cool.
music when I create. Okay, so I'm getting ready for my show in October at Hotel Hyatt. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
be a week long. There's going to be all kinds of fun things happening. I'm a big chess player, so I'm
Oh,
having a
cool.
custom chess piece and a board created.
Fun.
So it's gonna be like come down and beat me at chess, and it's gonna be a good time. And then there's gonna be a big art show on Saturday, October 12th. But the whole week there's gonna be different events at the hotel. So that's the big thing that I'm painting, getting ready for now.
Okay.
But you can reach out on social and follow the journey of creating the collection. And yeah, I mean, I work a lot within the community. Like I said, I'm co-chair with Gasparilla, so we're getting ready to launch next year. I mean, the festival isn't until March next year,
Yeah.
but we're preparing for it. Applications are open now for artists to apply.
Okay.
So there's lots going on, but it's pretty much all behind the scenes at this point.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Fun. Well,
exciting.
yeah. Come October, they can come check you out
Definitely
and meet you in
do.
person.
Yeah, it's free, so come on down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.